just so, all right, so that we can all just get the shorthand is CFP. Welcome again to this webinar, and thank you for joining us. This webinar will be recorded. Please be sure your microphone is on mute. Otherwise, the presentation you may do throughout this presentation, sorry, you may type any questions you have on the Q&A feature. You could also type it on the chat feature. And our team here, we have a team working with us today, and they will try to answer your questions. And please keep your questions strictly about this program so that we can stay focused on the information here. Again, the slides and the recording from this webinar will be posted in the NIFA website and the YouTube channel. The slides will be available on our website later. This is our non-discrimination statement. In accordance to the Federal Civil Rights Law and the USDA Civil Rights Regulations and Policies of the USDA, its agencies, offices, and employees, and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discrimination as documented in this slide, which also provides contact information for any additional information. Next, I will request our CFP team that is with us today to get on camera so that we can introduce ourselves very briefly. As they get on camera, I just want to say how lucky I am to be working with this NIFA team. It's made up of many NIFA staff leading this program in different areas. To start off, my name is Lydia Kaume, and I'm the National Program Leader for CFP. We'll go next to Brianna.
Hello, everyone. I am Brianna Burke. I am a program specialist who will be helping with the CFP program this year. Thank you all for joining us.
Shakiva.
Hello, everyone. I am Shakiba Shepherd. I am the program assistant for CFP this year.
Yes, Donna, then Matt, and then Pat, and then Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fairhurst. I'm a program specialist also supporting CFP this year. Great to have you today.
I'm Matt Browning. I'm a public affairs specialist with the NIFA communications team.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pat Martin, grants management specialist, and happy that everybody could join today. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Dennison, and I'm also one of the other grants management specialists for the CFP program.
Thank you, everybody. And Jennifer and I will be sharing this time here to present, as well as our team members will be supporting you with your questions at the end and at the end of the webinar, if we have time for Q&A. Kiva is here. I was hoping to introduce her if she wasn't here, but one of our team members, Beth Carling, who is the Senior Grants Management Specialist, whose picture is here, is also one of the team members that I would like to acknowledge, in addition to our Deputy Director for the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition, Dr. Suzanne Sluker, and our Division Director for the Division of Nutrition, Dr. Deidre Chester, who really do support this program. The entire team and you all as external stakeholders make this CFP program work. And so thank you. Today, Jennifer and I, we're going to present these topics in this order. I will provide a NIFA and program overview and walk through elements of the request for application, which we call the RFA, and finally touch on the proposal evaluation process. And then I will hand over to Jennifer, who will tackle the presentation from the Awards Management Division. And finally, we will supply you a list of additional information or resources. And then we will have a Q&A and as time allows. Again, please keep your questions strictly about this program so that we can stay focused. Our team members will be responding as we go, and any questions at the end will be answered. And if we cannot get to all your questions, we will save them and we'll respond to them through our frequently asked questions, which we will post on our website. All right, I'll start with our NIFA overview. So for those of us that are new to NIFA, this is NIFA is a short name for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. It is their lead extramural science funding agency within the research, education, and economics mission area of the USDA. NIFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture. As an agency, NIFA provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences and technologies to reach the people who can put them into practice. NIFA programs span a range of agricultural topics, and they include advanced technologies, animal sciences, business and economics, education, environment, food and nutrition security, human sciences, international programs, plant sciences, and so on. So feel free to go to grants.gov and look up any of these other topic areas should you be interested. Next, I will provide an overview of the NIFA CFP program, which is a NIFA program, and how to apply for this program based on the current RFA that is published. So first, let me begin by highlighting some key program application changes from FY 2022, so the prior year RFA. One, this program is competing one training and technical assistant grant award, and I will refer to this grant award as a TA grant in short. Number two, for this year, grantees of planning projects and community foods project grants will be required to cooperate with a TA provider for services offered, which may include assistance in project development or grantmanship or training or project evaluation and leadership development. There are in the RFA some specific things that will be required and then some things that are optional or encouraged. So that's another change. Number three that I would like to highlight is the evaluation and eligibility requirements. They have been streamlined. We have tried to clarify them for all the solicited grant types for this program. And finally, one other I want to highlight is successful applicants must not use grant funds awarded under this authority or this RFA that's out right now to renovate or refurbish spaces, or plan or repair or rehabilitate or acquire spaces or facilities, or construct buildings or facilities. So that's a change in this RFA that I wanted to highlight as well. Next, let me point you to where the RFA is online, and then let you know that the application deadline is October 7th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern. Submission of all grants is through, all grant proposals is through grants.gov. I want to acknowledge that in last year's RFA, it had FY 2023 on the RFA, but it also did indicate that we would provide a date for it. So that RFA that was for last year is now not current. The RFA that is current and that you would be looking at is the one that has an application deadline of October 7th. I mentioned that because we have received several questions about which of the RFAs should you be responding to. The total funding available for the FY 2023 is approximately 4.8 million. Program codes are very important to ensure that your grant lands in the right pile. So if you're applying for the training and technical assistant grant, the code is LN.A. The planning projects is LN.B. Community foods projects is LN.C. These slides will also be available for you so you can look at this, and it's also in the RFA. So I just want to make sure you know that these codes are important in the application. The maximum number of awards per applicant is 1. Okay, that's 1 per project, of course. So then we have the application submission. We wanted to make sure you know that NIFA only accepts electronic submissions of applications. There is a NIFA grant application guide that's available on the website. It's really well done and is able to help you help you as you apply, and it's a great guide, so refer to that. All application documents that you send through grants.gov have to be in portable document format PDF for them to be accepted by NIFA. Please note that grants.gov will allow you to submit other kinds of formats, including a Word document, but then NIFA does not accept anything that is not PDF. So make sure that it's in PDF. We also wanted to note that do not use the third-party PDF builders, as these are likely to create errors. So consult the application guide for that as well. All right, some particulars about the application that we wanted to bring to your attention. The project summary is an important and critical document for this program. If it's not in PDF and provided, then an application would not be reviewed. So this is a critical document. It needs to have overall project goals and supporting objectives. Other elements include plans and activities to accomplish the goals that you mention in your abstract and that are in your project. And then provide the relevance of the project goals to the program. In other words, link your goals to the CFP program, and do not include any proprietary or confidential information in your abstract. And I would like to encourage you, those who are applying, to make sure that they are keeping their abstract close to 250 words so that it can be comprehensive enough. And there is a template available for you as well to guide you. The next critical document we wanted to bring to your attention is the project narrative. There are many critical documents already in required documents in this program, but just wanted to highlight some that we get a lot of questions with. So the project narrative is not to exceed 15 pages of text, tables, and figures with a 1.5 spacing. So one of the questions we get then is, if I don't have tables and figures, do I still need to get 15 pages? No, the maximum is 15 pages. If it's 15 pages with of just text, great. If you have some tables that you want to include, that's included in the 15 pages. The page limit is strictly enforced. Applications exceeding the page limit will not be reviewed. Then we want you to also pay attention to the font size as listed in the RFA, and ensure that the font size is the same across your documents for the text, figures, and tables. Another important thing regarding the project narrative, please don't include links in your project narrative. Reviewers are instructed not to follow any links during their review, because if we do that, then we are trying to circumvent the page limitations which are in place, and therefore that wouldn't be a fair review. So only we ask the reviewers to use only the contents in the grant application and not to look outside, so they do not go into links. So don't include links, reviewers will not look into those. Before you apply to this program, we make sure that the purpose and priorities align with your work. So I wanted us to go through this primary goals of CFP, so you can hear them, and also you can, they're also available in the RFA. So the primary goals of CFP are to meet the food needs of low-income individuals through food distribution, community outreach, to assist in participation in federally assisted nutrition programs, or improve access to food as part of a comprehensive service. Number 2 is to increase the self-reliance of communities in providing for the food needs of the communities and promote comprehensive responses to local food access, farm and nutrition issues, or meet specific state, local, neighborhood food and agricultural needs, including the needs related to equipment necessary for efficient operation of a project, planning for long-term solutions, or the creation of innovative marketing activities that mutually benefit agricultural producers and low-income consumers. The grant and project types. So sometimes we use these words interchangeably, but for the purposes of application, the grant type is standard. There are several other categories of grant types available across NIFA, but for this program, it's a standard. Then the project types, we have the training and technical assistant, which is abbreviated TNTA, and I'm calling it simply TA, and the planning grant and the project grant, which is CFP. There is we're going to talk about some criteria, eligibility next about these programs, but we will first talk about each of these project types. For the TA or the T and TA grant for FY 2023, we will compete a 1 award continuation multi-year grant. Applicants should request a budget commensurate with the proposed project. No single TA will exceed 250 in any given year, or $1 million in 4 years. No matching funds are required. This grant will not be competed every year. The planning grant, applicants should request a budget commensurate with the proposed project. Historically, the average award for planning grants is approximately $25,000 US for 12 to 36 months. Maximum award for planning grants is $35,000 US over 12 to 36 months. This is again a one-time award, and matching is required. The Community Foods Project grant, historically, the average award for the CFP grant is $298 over 36 to 48 months. The maximum award is $125,000 USD over 12 months, or $400,000 USD over 48 months. The purpose of the award is to support development of community food projects with a one-time contribution of federal dollars to become self-sustaining. A match is required, a 1-to-1 match is required. So who is eligible to apply to the program in general? So eligibility can be found on page 14 of the RFA Part 3. To be eligible for a community foods competitive program grant under subsection B of the authorizing legislation, a public food program service provider, a public food program service provider, a tribal organization, or a private nonprofit entity, including gleaners, who must also have the following requirements. So that's just not the only requirement. These are 4 requirements that I'll read out. You must have experience in the areas of community food work, particularly concerning small and medium-sized farms, including the provision of food to people in low-income communities and the development of new markets in low-income communities for agricultural producers. Must have experience in job training and business development activities for food-related activities in low-income communities, or must have experience in efforts to reduce food insecurity in the community, including food distribution, improving access to services, or coordinating services and programs. Eligibility is continued. To be eligible for this program, number 2, demonstrate competency to implement a project, provide fiscal accountability, collect data, and prepare reports and other necessary documentation. Number 3, demonstrate a willingness to share information with researchers, practitioners, and other interested parties. And number 4, collaborate with 1 or more local partner organizations to achieve at least one hunger-free community goal. These 4 requirements are applied to all grant projects for this program, according to the current RFA. In addition, each of these projects has its own eligibility, and most of that eligibility is based on entity. So eligible applicants for the TA grant are limited to non-government organizations, state, corporate extension services, regional food systems centers, federal, state, or tribal agencies, and institutions of higher education. For the CFP and the planning grants, the project grants and the planning grants, the eligibility is for private nonprofit entities, again, which is defined as any non-governmental corporation, trust, association, cooperative, or other organization which is operated primarily for scientific, educational service, charitable, or similar purpose in the public interest. The organization is not organized primarily for profit and uses its net proceeds to maintain, improve, and/or expand its operations. So these requirements again on page 15 of the RFA, please note that. And I'm coming to the end of my piece. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the evaluation process. We get lots of questions. What happens once you apply? Proposals are usually going through these 4 steps. And the 4 steps are proposals get assigned to a review, to at least 3 reviewers with expertise in the field that the topic is on. The reviewers provide individual reviews. These written reviews are to begin panel discussions with other reviewers serving on a peer review panel. And finally, through panel discussions, the panelists, also called reviewers, come to consensus on the final rating and ranking of the proposals. The evaluation criteria that the reviewers use is really the same one that you have on the RFA. It's the exact same. So we advise that you read that evaluation criteria before starting to write your proposal. The evaluation criteria is as follows on page 29 to 33, sorry. 29 to 33 of the RFA is where each of those criteria for the different projects is outlined. So, and the next question we get is, once we apply and the application has been accepted, how long does it take to get an award? On average, A competitive program at NIFA takes 3 to 5 months from the time the proposal due date ends, which means October 7th of this year, to when the institution or the organization gets the award. So we appreciate your patience during that time. Next, I will invite my colleague Jennifer to present the awards management critical information. Please pay attention to this as well. It's very important for those who want to apply based on this RFA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. So we can move on to the next slide. So yes, we do have a team of people managing the Community Foods Awards, but mainly it is Beth and myself. Pat is also here, Pat Martin. We're the main folks who will be working through Community Foods Awards. So we are part of the awards management division. And so we don't really come into play until after the peer panel, after applicants have been recommended an award. So if you are eventually recommended for award, you will eventually hear from us. So our role is just to ensure everything is in compliance with federal and USDA regulations and policies. Quick agenda here of things I'll be touching on. So pre-award requirements. Again, everything I'll be sharing here is the work that starts after award recommendation. So once an award proposal is recommended, that's when the pre-award process begins. Indirect cost recovery, details on matching requirements, and I'll be touching on cost principles, including unallowable costs. And for budget and justification, I'll direct to give you an idea of how to structure budget information. Next slide. Thank you. So in the RFA, it talks about organizational management information under the application review requirements. So we just bring this up so that you're aware that even though you may be eligible for an award, certain factors may exclude an applicant from receiving funding after an award is recommended. During the pre-award review, we will complete a pretty in-depth review of applicants and the overall proposal and budget, and make sure that everything's there, and we may be requesting more information and more documents from you. So some of those things might be financial statements, information on your cost accounting system, if you've had recent federal awards or not, your policies on salary compensation rates, and statement of purposes and powers, bylaws, those kinds of things.
Hey, Jenny, can you speak a little louder? There is a comment that it's hard to hear you.
Okay, yes. Am I sounding better? Okay, great. Okay, fiscal agents. Fiscal agents are allowable as part of CFP. This is really for organizations that don't have stable financial systems in place and they need assistance managing their grant funds. So as Lydia noted earlier, applicants need to have the ability to demonstrate fiscal accountability. So that's part of the eligibility review. And, I don't see very many of these, but for a smaller nonprofit who has never managed a federal grant, that might be an example of the nonprofit wanting to partner with an organization to be a fiscal agent for them. So you can see we always need sam.gov registration and organizational management information for the prime entity, but if there is a fiscal agent involved, we would need that for both entities. And something that's not on the slide here, you need to include a letter in the application stating that if recommended for an award, the funds will be administered through a fiscal agent. And that is in the RFA. Next slide, indirect cost recovery. So grantees are allowed to take indirect costs on CFP awards. If your organization has a cognizant federal agency, that agency will provide you with a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement. But for most CFP grantees, they're going to go with the 10% de minimis rate, or just elect not to recover any direct costs at all. So everything in their budget is direct costs. If the 10% de minimis is chosen, that percentage is based off of what's called the modified direct total cost of the federal award. It's not off of the entire project budget, and it's not off of the full award amount, usually, because the modified direct total cost excludes certain items like equipment or tuition remission. So I see some applicants miscalculating that. So if there's any questions on that, feel free to reach out on that to get your correct IDC amount. But if if it is miscalculated, we always review that and we'll make adjustments, and then award documents will have the final numbers. So next slide. Matching requirements. So the CFP and the planning applications have mandatory matching dollar for dollar. They must be documented for all project years at the time of application, and they can be through cash or in-kind contributions, including third-party in-kind contributions. The non-federal share of funding may come from state government, local government, other nonprofit entities, or private sources, but not federal government. There's very rare instances where that is allowable, but for the most part, there shouldn't be any other federal dollars in your matching funds. Examples of qualifying matching contributions may include direct costs, such as rent for office space used exclusively for the project, duplication or postage costs, and staff time from any entity. It doesn't have to be a specific entity, and like it says here, any entity other than applicant. It can be from any entity. Yeah, so we'll go a little bit further into some of those in the next couple slides. So next slide. The Office of Management and Budget have the uniform guidance that we follow for all of these guidelines. It's also known as 2 CFR Part 200. So it establishes these requirements, the cost principles, audit requirements for federal awards to non-federal entities. So this is what NIFA is following in order to determine matching requirements and to make sure costs are allowable, reasonable, and allocable. So if you're curious want to explore more, that bottom web address is for looking at the two CFR 200. It's pretty easy to navigate, and it's very informative and pretty interesting once you start digging into it. But we're gonna go into more matching information. So quickly here, as I said, matching can be a cash match, in-kind match, either from the recipient itself or a third party, and no federal dollars are allowed for match. We can go on to the next one. So some guidelines here for matching. The entire match must be secured at time of award, must be for costs incurred specifically for the project during the project period. For example, in-kind donations have to be donated within the period of performance. Matching must be for costs that are normally allowable under cost principles. So there's no difference between the federal award dollars and the matching funds. They both need to be allowable under cost principles. Here are some examples of unacceptable matches. So funds provided by another organization for use on another similar project. Matching funds cannot be provided by a federal agency. Program income expected to be earned cannot be counted towards the match. Indirect cost rates applied beyond the federal portion of the award, not allowed. No contingency costs. The value of equipment previously purchased or donated, because it's not within the project period, would not count. And other things like incentives, loan programs. So these are some common costs we see on budgets. And I'm just gonna go over a little bit of the level of detail we need to see during our review. So for personnel salary, provide annual or hourly rate of pay, the personnel's commitment specifically to the project and their role in the project. Salary rates should be the normal rate of pay for their work. Volunteer time should be supported by the same level of documentation as used for employees. Rate of pay is based on the work to be performed only. And we always want to see your method for evaluating any budget item. So you don't want to be guessing how you got to the final amount that you came up with. Slide. If office space is needed that is not part of the recipient's, the entity's usual place of business, that is allowed as long as you can provide adequate details to why this is needed, how much space, how much the space usually costs, and the other information here in these bullet points. Donations, again, need to show us your method for evaluating the donations and have records of this. A couple more examples here. Travel costs. So show us the purpose and destination, number of trips and travelers, how the travelers are getting to their destination, the cost per trip, for materials and supplies, provide a list of items and estimated costs. If you need to rent space at a facility, provide documentation of price and retail information. And for costs of any place that doesn't normally charge for rental space, those costs are unallowable. That would be an example of unallowed matching costs if you're trying to use those costs towards the match. So the message here is really just to give details. Don't be vague in the budget. Everything needs to provide detail of proposed costs. Show us how you came up with the end amount. Show us the methods for determining the values given. Okay, now next one. Next slide. Okay. So another list here of unallowed costs we see from time to time. I'm going to read every word here, but entertainment costs, food, refreshments, we see that sometimes, and that's considered entertainment unless it's absolutely necessary. Incentives, anything to do with lobbying, personal injuries, promotional items, giveaways, anything that relates to fundraising costs, not allowed. And then lastly, infrastructure and construction. As Lydia noted, this was a change in the RFA from last year. So erection, acquisition, renovation, repair, remodeling, or expansion of new or existing buildings or other physical facilities, unallowed, and pre-construction costs are also unallowed. Next slide. You have to submit a budget breakdown with the R&R budget forms that are in grants.gov. And there also comes with that a written budget justification that you need to provide on its own separate page. So if you can see this example, this is the cumulative R&R or research and related budget page. So the first column is for total federal funds. The second column is non-federal funds, so you're matching dollars. And then the last column is just the totals of those put together. So make sure when you're filling out these forms on grants.gov, they add up and they make sense. Sometimes I see ones that don't add up. I'm not sure what happens there, but just give things a look over. Should be fine. So separate justifications are needed for federal and matching funds. Try not to combine the narratives on those two. If you can keep things separate and clear, it helps us to better understand the budgets. The level of detail required to summarize and justify funds is the same for federal and matching. If an expense is unallowable, if it's unallowable on the federal budget, it is unallowable as matching, as I said before. And if costs are deemed, if we do find some costs that are deemed unallowable during the review process, additional costs or matching sources may be required, and we will reach out to you in these cases. So this picture here is an example of the cumulative budget, but there are also budget period forms. So we need to make sure that there are the correct number of budget period forms as to years of the project. So if there is a 3-year award, you're requesting 3 years, you'll need to have 3 budget periods provided. plus the cumulative one, plus the written justification. Okay, next slide. More on matching. You need to know where your matching funds are coming from to make sure they're allowable, and projects unable to meet the matching requirements will not be funded, or we may reduce the award amount. So if a proposal gets through the peer panel and everyone loves the proposal, we can most likely work with reducing funds, some other situation to get that award processed. A complete list of matching sources must be secured and maintained at the grantee organization. The responsibility to secure and expend matching funds rests with the grantee. Documentation is needed to ensure compliance with matching requirements after the award. So we may randomly complete desk audits or reviews on awards. So just make sure to keep organized all of the award documentation, matching, and the federal funds. We will also be monitoring and reviewing different items along with annual reporting periods. So it's always good to keep everything together and organized. And one last thing I wanted to note is that these CFP awards are not reimbursable grants. I've had a couple people ask about that, and these are not reimbursable grants. NIFA allows for advanced draws on NIFA awards. So we won't be submitting every invoice for costs or requesting funds for every purchase. It's really the grantee's responsibility to follow the uniform guidance and to read the terms and conditions and be in communication with all of us on keeping the award in compliance. Thank you for listening to that. I hope there are some questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for working with us through this process and for that presentation. I see lots of questions being asked and lots of questions being answered. Thank you so much for our team who are working on the background here to answer all these questions. We have additional information in the form of just links in a document that we wanted to drop in the chat so that those of us who would rather just have that and flip through those links that are important to them can do that. So I would ask Matt to drop that in the chat, please. And then the only other slide here that we wanted to just show, and again, this is recorded, so it will be available for you, is our contact information, sm.nifa.cfp@usda.gov is an email that we respond to with the CFP team. That way it allows many people to see your email and respond as quickly as we can, especially during this time of an open RFA. There's quite a bit of questions. Then you have Beth Culling and Jennifer's email also available on the slide there for those of us who are asking for those to be able to get in touch with our awards management team in case they have questions about budgets and matching. You can ask those as well. So it's time for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen, and if we have time, Matt, you could answer a few questions.
Sure, there's a question. Do CFP grants support sustaining existing work?
Okay, that's a great question. So if the project is not already supported by CFP, that would be a great one of those great projects that CFP could support if it's written up in a way that reviewers understand and see that it's aligned with the program. Most successful CFP projects are not necessarily newly formed projects. These are projects that are already happening sometimes in communities where is lots of entities connected together to solve food insecurity or nutrition insecurity problems in their communities, and they have probably been going on for a while and just need that federal funding to be able to get them to a sustainable end. So that, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, there's a question. Are scholarships to attend training allowed?
Jennifer, Pat, is that an allowable cost?
Hey, I was just starting to type in there, but it definitely can be an allowed cost. Everything is kind of depends because it needs to fit CFP goals. Like, is it going towards the CFP goals? So usually that would be something allowed. It just has to fit within the project and make sense.
Pat, do you want to come off mute and add anything to that? Patrick, sorry.
Yes, thanks, Lydia. Everybody's favorite answer, it depends. We would look at how it was included, and if it had a direct correlation, then it could be allowable. But there would be circumstances where it would be unallowable as well. Thank you.
No, thank you for being here to help us answer these budget questions.
Okay, the next question, can grant funds be used to purchase program supplies that could be sold as a means of developing a sustainable revenue stream for the program?
Lydia, I would take a shot at this one if I can. I would say
Absolutely.
that would generally be unallowable, as that is not exactly the intent of this grant. But Lydia, I don't know if you have a different take on that.
Pat, I would agree with you. But you know, the CFP program, even if they talk about having innovative business generating ideas for food systems, it wouldn't involve like buying t-shirts and supplies and selling them. That is not the goal of the program. So I do not see that aligning with the goals of CFP either. Next question. If there is yeah.
Ready? What is the documentation required for volunteer hour match option? Does this match need to be accompanied by financial matches?
Lydia, I could take a shot at this one as well. We would hope that the grantee would keep internal records, and if at the conclusion of the grant, the records were audited, we would hope that the grantee would be able to produce those documents which showed the volunteer time and the rate. As people submit grant applications, they will generally include an hourly rate for the volunteer hours. The traditional example would be if an attorney is volunteering in your community food kitchen, they would not bill at their hourly rate, but you might be able to do that at $10 or $20 an hour. And I don't know if I understand the second part of the question. Matt, could you repeat the second part of the question?
Yeah, it says, does this match need to be accompanied by financial matches?
So a volunteer match would be separate from a financial match, if I am understanding the question correctly.
I'm understanding it the way you are too, unless someone wants to clarify absolutely that that it stands on its own, volunteer match.
Yeah, I think I also agree with you too. The volunteer hour match is like an in-kind match.
Mm-hmm.
So that would count towards the match. I don't know how the financial match would be part of that.
Okay, the next question is, if awarded, when will the grant be awarded and what is the start date of the PP and CFP grants?
So I can take that. So it takes about 3 to 5 months. Like I said, from the time the RFA closes to when an organization receives their award. So that's the first part of the question. And the second part is, tell me again what the question was. Sorry, I lost it.
Yes, it was, when will the grants be awarded and what is the start date of the PP and CFP grants?
Okay, those would have about the same start date. And give it 3 to 5 months, and when you get that award, the face sheet that you sign gives you a start date on when you can start. That we typically start all of the awards that we are awarding at the same year, and that's at about the same date. So I hope that helps. We don't have dates yet because we haven't gotten to the point where we are awarding.
Can federal and match be used to split the cost of employees' time 50-50?
Jennifer, do you want to give this one a shot, and then I can try after? I just want to see how you, thanks.
I mean, I would just say yes, pretty clearly. I see that sometimes in budgets where everything is just split down the middle, all the costs.
Jennifer, speak a little louder, please. Please.
Yes. So I would say yes, that that would be fine. I don't really see an issue there.
If I'm understanding the question correctly, I think it would be, if an employee was at $50,000, could they take $25,000 of the federal funding and then do the match with the other 25? And we do see that fairly often. So that would be allowable.
And Lydia, we do have several more questions in the chat and are coming up on the top of the hour. Do you want to keep answering more, or do you want to save these and answer them on the website?
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for the many, many questions. And because there's quite a number of them, am I muted? No. Since there are many questions at this time, Matt, maybe we can take one more and then close it for the day with respect to other people's time, and but then answer this and add them to our Q&A.
Okay, I'll do the next one in the list. Is there will be a grants.gov downtime while the system uploads to the cloud. Will there be a problem for us submitting information online if something goes wrong and that period is extended?
Lydia, I'll take a shot at this one. We would strongly encourage everyone to try to get their applications in 24 hours before, so that you're not running into an example where you're waiting for the system to upload at the very last minute and something were to go wrong. In this scenario, if you do run into that, you could always reach out to the awards division and we will get together with Lydia, but we would strongly encourage everyone to try to get their applications in before that last minute to try to avoid this situation.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for taking that question, Patrick. And again, if you run into those kinds of issues, please reach out and we will do our best to make sure that you're not disadvantaged. But don't be a last minute as well, because that can be an issue. All right. Thank you again for joining us. We have had a great time presenting this. I hope you learned something new and reach out to us at any time. Thank you and goodbye.